We don't have any questions, so we'll call Sheila Hemphill, Texas Right to Know.
Thank you.
Thank you, committee. I want to express gratitude to Speaker Strauss for calling forth this hearing on this very important issue about utilities that affect all utility customers of Texas. I'm honored to represent those. I'm Sheila Hemphill from Brady, Texas. And I want to thank you, Chairman Cook, and this committee for hearing it late in the day. Each of your offices received a report that I will try to condense in about 10 minutes, 5 to 10, and keep it tight. I don't know if you have them with you. Did you all have these with you? Okay. Did y'all receive these? Oh, good. Yay. Sorry, I was a teacher. So good. This report is pretty much divided into 3 different sections. The first, about 30 pages, deals with the actual problems regarding billing, installment, health issues, and all of these are reflected in the table of contents. So if you have we'll just kind of glance through these table of contents. I put in a legislative background so that people who are not been tracing what's happening in the public utilities of Texas have some background on the legislation and how we got here with the Smart Meter Initiative. Started in 2005 with HB 2129. And what's really important about that is the language there said to encourage the use of smart meters. To date, there is not a state nor a federal mandate that requires or forces the use of smart meters by residents. The best I can tell is people will say, well, that was a PUC ruling somewhere. So I've contacted the PUC, I've contacted the OPUC, and I've yet to find that specific ruling as to where it made it mandatory. Now, what I can find is when these utilities, TDSPs, put forth their plans that they say that we're going to install in all residents and commercial areas, they say, okay. So I don't know if approving is the same thing as ruling. So if anyone knows where that rule is, I would be interested to see that. Now, the greatest complaints, I'm on page 1 of the table of contents, is that of higher bills. This particularly raised its head back in 2010 when the Legislative Act and the PUC put forth what is referred to as an independent study called the Navigant Report. In that report, it showed that the smart meters did collect 2% more usage. And they also talked about how if there were certain solder points in the meters that were broken, it could cause the meters to run faster. Now, something we see, and I've only been in this, I'm a citizen. I mean, I have a background in computer science and technology. I work in with environmental doctors globally that are involved with physics, environmental health, and I'm a citizen. I have got involved in this because of the smart meter issue that came into our town. So the higher bills, you can trace every single time that a project takes it from an analog environment to a smart meter, that there's a rise of complaints. Well, if you've lived in a house for 30 years, you know what your bills usually run in the spring, and you know what to expect in the summer. So when you get this transition, when they put on this new meter and your bill doubles, you are questioning what happened. How did that happen? So if you look on page 8 on higher bills, this phenomenon has been supported by an email from the chairman of the California PUC, Michael Peavy, that when Chairman Peavy got a smart meter on his vacation home, which is the exact same technology used by CPS Energy of Silver Springs Networking and Landis Gear, Mr. Peavy bill doubled. In June of 2014, when San Antonio was proposing the new smart meter, Councilmember Gallagher asked, what are the other cities experiencing? And the complaint that was in the minutes says one of the biggest complaints were those of high bills. Now, George Haleas with LULAC, as well as Mr. Rodriguez, who's here today with LULAC, testified during at the city council how that when low-income people have a doubling of their utility bill, that social demographic doesn't have the budget to be able to pay that utility bill. So if their utilities get cut off, they are in violation of their Section 8 housing and could possibly lose their voucher when they get doubling of utility bills. in response to what was happening from the complaints of their LULAC members, they passed a resolution in 2015 at the National Convention to put a moratorium on smart meters. Now, in 2012, the health complaints were to such a degree that Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst called forth for a public hearing about health and safety concerns from smart meters. That was done in 2012. On page 10, an assessment of the biggest symptoms associated with exposure to smart meters. Number 1 is sleep disruption, headaches, ringing or buzzing of the ears, fatigue, loss of concentration, memory, learning disability, disorientation, dizziness, loss of balance. This has been substantiated in multiple scientific documents, and in this particular one was 410 different patients from different parts of the world, because the global deployment of smart meters is global. Now, in 2012, they kind of had us, because they were going, just because you see all this happening, the symptoms happening when someone gets a smart meter on their house, the catchphrase was, correlation does not equate to causation, which is correct. However, what happened in 2013 is Dr. Martin Paul won the 2013 Global Medical Research Award for showing the effects of electromagnetic fields impact on voltage-gated calcium channels of our cells. So now we have the mechanism. We know what is being done, not just seeing, wondering what happened. We know what is happening to the cells of our body. That particular research also shows that there's a beneficial attribute to exposure to electromagnetic fields as well as a hazardous effect. From the beneficial side of it, I'm currently working with Johnson Space Center and NASA with the utilization of a beneficial electromagnetic device to help with muscle atrophy and bone loss. So when people want to say that, oh, non-ionizing, which is what you get from cellular devices, is non-ionizing radiation, doesn't have any effect on the body, I completely, affirmatively disagree with that statement, and I can show you the videos that come from intravital microscopy from the Institute of Microcirculation in Berlin, Germany. So, also, in 2010, we get some more emails from Chairman of the PUC in California, Michael Peavy. Remember, they have the same technology as CPS Energy in San Antonio and millions of homes in Texas, Silver Springs Networking and Landis Gear. If it were my decision, I would let anyone who wants to keep their old meter keep it if they claim to suffer from EMF, electromagnetic frequency hypersensitivity. I would institute such a policy quietly and solely on an individual basis. There really are people who feel pain, etc., related to EMF. Now, another big complaint, and this particular charge talked about recent examples. So because the most recent exchange of analog to smart meters is occurring in San Antonio, Texas, the middle section of this document, from about page 32 to 69, are complaints that comes predominantly from the San Antonio area. The back side of it is an extensive evaluation of the misrepresentations of the projects that we'll get to in a minute. Intimidation and unfavorable encounters during smart meter installation. In this middle section, you will see testimonies of failure to give notice, installers threatening to charge a fee for refusing installation, breaking locks on gates, failure to carry an opt-out list, and honor submitted opt-out request. Because of the turmoil or the awareness that happened in Alamo Heights, that particular community, which was one of the 30 ones that CPS services, was aware of the smart meter issue. So they were able to organize, and CPS offered them to provide their name to provide an opt-out list. They were on a list. They submit their letter. The problem was they started sending out installers that didn't have the list. So they would just go in and start removing people's meters. Well, every time there was a period that if you kept your meter, that you weren't and didn't have additional charge. But if they didn't have the list, they installed the meter, guess what? There was a meter charge. So here we have the forced deployment of smart meters without a federal or state mandate. In fact, in 2011, Chairman Donna Nelson, PUCT Chairman Donna Nelson, testified before the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. State legislature has encouraged the implementation of advanced metering by directing the Texas PUC to establish a cost recovery mechanism for utilities that deploy smart meters and related networks. The PUC has allowed, now the language, it says voluntary, that the TDSPs may participate voluntarily. However, that benefit was not afforded to the customers. So once the TDSPs decided that they were going to implement, it was forced upon customers. Customers denied the right to a non-standard meter. So when the rules came out for the in 2012, after the hearings that took place in October 2012 and the subsequent hearings of SB 241 under John Corona in the spring of 2013, the PUC did respond with options for an opt-out. In this, it defined a non-standard meter to be a meter that does not function as an advanced meter. That means it would not have any wireless communications to it, a non-standard meter. Now, on these opt-out policies, a big problem is the fact that only people who can opt out are if you're on a single-family dwelling. They are discriminating against people who live in multifamily dwellings. Who lives in multifamily dwellings? Usually low income, elderly, and people on fixed incomes. So when you look back here on the complaints, you're going to see Rosa Estrada, whose daughter would have one seizure a week, and when she got her smart meter, she started having them daily. You will see John Ryan in Encore in his early 50s immediately start having heart palpitations. What happens when you have heart palpitations? Do you call your utility company? No. You go to the doctor. So as Mr. Ryan went to the doctor, had the test, paid for the test, nuclear stress test is about $5,000 just for the test, his heart was fine. Now, I'm not sure with Mr. Ryan, but normally, if you continue to have heart palpitations, the doctor's probably going to want to prescribe you medicine. And then if that doesn't resolve the heart palpitation, then the option is ablation, which is going into surgery and clipping the nerves. Fortunately, Mr. Ryan was told that a smart meter had been placed upon his home. When he contacted Encore, they came out, and come to find out, Encore was using his home as a collector site, transmitting 7 different homes' data to his house, to his meter. Now, in 2012, we did not have observation, problem, and resolution because we didn't have an opt-out. But now, since there's an opt-out, we have definitive problem. Well, first, the installation, problem, and we have resolution, because when these meters get off these homes, these people's symptoms go away. The opt-out fees vary greatly among utility providers. Now, in California, because they were out ahead of us, they were already picking up a lot of the turbulence coming in from the complaints. Now, that's the same chairman of the PUC who, in his private emails, we see what he's really thinking about the smart meter project. In communications, that the opt-out was intentionally to keep people from opting out. That if we didn't have a significant opt-out initial fee, our 2 to 5% opting out would be more like 40 or 50%, and our $7 billion project would be a waste. So I believe that that is clear communication that their opt-out fees were intent to keep people from opting out. However, the California PUC set the rates at $75 initial and $10 monthly. So in 2013, after the turbulence and the hearings, we actually were on the intent calendar for SB 251, but it died due to time. The PUC did put forth rulings to allow for opt-outs. However, our PUC let the TDSP set their own rates. So those range anywhere from $319 for AEP, a one-time fee of $209 to $319, with $35 monthly. Now, I don't know how current these are, because you see my little notes here? My notes are when I went to the site and tried to find out, get current information. And on AEP, the link was broken, and I couldn't find the information about opting out. On Encore, they proposed a low fee as low as $445 to provide a customer without an advanced meter. Encore provides a range as high as $842, and I have the source of where this originated from. My favorite was Texas, New Mexico, that wanted to charge $142.84 one-time fee to allow the customer to keep their existing analog. Why would you be charged to keep your analog meter? CenterPoint, $38 monthly, and I do believe that these rates have changed. I think they've dropped since then. As of August 2016, it's $32.80 per month for CenterPoint. The municipalities, they seem to be significantly lower. Austin is $75 initial, $10 monthly. But now what we're starting to see, that as they're starting to deploy in other water, electric, and gas, that those areas are also charging $75 initial and $10. So the cost for people not to be exposed to electromagnetic fields, that they endangers their health, or they even feel the threat of endangering their health. When you are charged money to keep from being harmed, that's what we call extortion. So here are the opt-out fees. And, you know, I know this is kind of heavy. Sorry about that. But I do believe there's some possible resolutions that we're going to get to. Failure to conduct proper due diligence. Man, did I love hearing to the auditor. I was like, how can we get a hold of those in our municipalities? Because I think I'm going to add to my skill set auditor, because this is what we found. In Brady, when they brought in, indebted us $2.5 million, I asked for the return of investment. Where's the ROI for the project? Where's the cost-benefit analysis? Where are the complaints from the maintenance? After 2 years of trying to get answers, after letters to the editor, finally, a new city manager said, Mrs. Hemphill criticizes city staff for not providing her with written document analyzing the merits of the project. No such paper exists. So just like she was finding in state agencies, we, the people, take the time to find out what's happening in our municipalities. Now, Mr. Mitchell here, if you'll raise your hand, Stan, is a Harvard MBA, and this is his analysis of the proposals being projected in San Antonio, Texas, where the back side of this booklet has Mr. Mitchell's assessment. On this page, you will see that they're proposing $145 million positive after a 20-year cash flow positive after a 20-year assessment. Now, what this omitted was the cost of money. So when you add interest on that $290 million project, that's $202 million worth of interest that was not in the cash flow assessment. They have a 20-year project with smart meters where most manufacturers say they last 15 years. Well, if you have a 20-year project with a 15-year device, you better put in that you're going to need to buy meters again. Now, this is where it gets really concerning. In this report, you will see testimony that happened in October 2015 by Bennett Gaines in cybersecurity hearings in Washington, D.C. He is stating that in order to secure the entire electrical grid, it is necessary to keep these meters up to date, and now that they're computer systems, they'll need to be replaced every 5 to 7 years. So if we have municipal or TDU projections basing a 15-year, and just like Representative Huberty, what did you say about IT a while ago? You better watch out if IT is going to run your company. Well, this is what we're having about pursuing all this technology, which is to do, what's the purpose? Is to bill for electricity used. So one of the biggest touts is, oh, we don't have to have meter readers now. Well, Austin finished their $150 million project in 2009. 5 years later, they had to spend $60 million for software upgrade. In technology world, we call that Moore's Law, meaning that it's a perpetual chase to keep up with the software requirements, especially when you're working in wireless. Just go ask the Democratic National Convention about hacking and how all the hacking that's taking place in all sorts of arenas that is essential to keep your software up to date. And depending on the needs of that, pushes what your hardware requirements are. So when you get to the back here, the utility, yes, sir.
You provide with a lot of information, which
Yes, sir.
which everybody on this panel can read. We're now
Yes, sir.
almost 20 minutes into this.
Oh.
So what I would like for you to do now is, if you want to just kind of wrap it up and tell us what you think can be done
Yes,
as
sir.
positive, that would be good.
I would
because
love
once
to.
again, all these members
Thank you.
can read this at their
I'm
leisure.
sorry,
Okay.
20 minutes really went by. On page 21, I'll finish. where the utilities are saying they only transmit 6 times a day, they are not counting the mesh network. The mesh network, these are court documents utilizing, requiring mesh network software system to disclose how many transmissions they're actually doing. For the mesh network message management, it's 9,600 times in 24 hours with a maximum of 190,000 transmissions. So what are some proposed solutions? In this handout that you received, in the back of this, it was sticking up above. In Chapter 25 of the PUC rulings, dot 123, prior to the smart meter project, I'm right here on C. There was a section there called Customer Read Program. If an electric utility has Customer Read Program in which customers read their own meters and report their usage monthly, reading should be considered an actual meter reading by the electric utility for billing purposes. However, an electric utility shall read the meters of customers on a Customer Read Program at least every 12 months to verify the accuracy of the electric utility records. So this was a clause that was in the PUC rulings that allowed for Customer Read Program. It stated that the utilities only needed to check it once every 12 months. Now, when the smart meters came in, this bottom section here is how they modified that particular rule. We would ask that that rule be put back to its original reading to enable CPS, well, they're municipal. I know that y'all don't have jurisdiction over municipals, but they kind of follow suit. If this committee tasked the PUC to change the rules back and allowed a customer read to where we're not having to pay monthly fees for a meter read, I think it's a win-win. You heard how many people have opted out. Most people don't even know what a smart meter is. They don't even know where the meter is. So if they offer a no-cost opt-out, you're not talking about this big exodus, because most people don't know what it is. But those who do and those who feel threatened by it should have a right not to have one and have to pay for one. So we'd ask for a no-cost opt-out. The health attributes of this is one of the hardest things to convey to anyone. It's the biggest battle that we have. And how fortuitous that this was in San Antonio's paper yesterday. The human cost of faster tech. And it's about the recent studies coming out from the National Toxicology Program. So because of what's coming to the surface, and you can verify the legality, the auditor was talking about risk assessment. All you have to do is you go look at the risk assessment of these 10Ks of these wireless companies, which they're in the back of this folder. You will see what Verizon risk assessed on wireless exposure and EMF. Then you will see Lloyd's of London and other health companies who are excluding health coverage for exposure to radio frequencies. So because of that, we would like notice that the customer has a right to know that a device is emitting 9,600 times a day or 190. They have a right to know if the company is using their house as a cellular collector site. It's right to know. So I thank this committee and welcome questions.
Members, are there any questions? Okay, thank you very much for being here and thank you for your testimony.